Life is strange. The times we live in are strange. The entertainment business is strange. In 1995, I was living in London and I wanted to get back into filmmaking. When I was a kid, I grew up around 8mm film. Mostly my dad would film us doing ordinary things, growing up really. The cool thing about 8mm was there was no sound, so it was more of like a drive-by of your life. And as I got older, I went from being someone who was filmed to someone who started filming stuff. 8mm led to videotape, and the quality on video wasn't very good, and I decided I would try my hand at filmmaking. So from the little apartment I was renting in London, I decided to write a screenplay. I was going to move back to Los Angeles and basically become a filmmaker. That was my plan anyway, and I needed capital. So I called a friend who I'd known when I'd been living in LA. Marvin had been an actor, had several companies. He struggled with issues around money and substance abuse. So who better to finance my movie than Marvin? So then came the challenge of the script. I'd written many screenplays over the years. I'd had friends who were screenwriters, playwrights, people who wrote feature films. Occasionally friends would ask me to collaborate on scripts with them, but I'd never really made a film from soup to nuts. And after a few drafts, I realized that the story that I wanted to tell was what you go through when you move to a big city and try and make your dream come true. So the story began in Los Angeles, and it's about three characters, the Silverman brothers and a bandit. The older one, Mark, he was in the middle of his career, working in restaurants. The younger Silverman brother was at the beginning of his career, taking classes, doing good work. And then there was this mysterious character. He was desperate. He was lonely. He'd become a bandit, robbing banks and such. The younger character reminded me of me when I started in the business, because you're in this position of whether you want to call it an illusion or a delusion. So here we have these three characters. They're really just pursuing their dreams. For the oldest character, the bandit, his dream didn't come true. So now he's doing everything he can to survive, which is mostly stealing the wealth of other people. And in many ways, in real life, my friend Marvin was like that, racking up credit cards, avoiding paying his taxes, and he had access to funding. And I didn't ask where the funding came from. I just wanted to make my movie. My buddy Joe had been acting on and off for years, doing really good work in his classes, working with Sanford Meisner toward the end of Meisner's life. And I had fallen into voiceover work, but I knew the life of an actor. I knew what that was about. So I would play Mark Silverman, the older brother. I brought in another friend named Mark Marone. And Mark had also been acting for years. He came from Bensonhurst in New York. He had a kind of De Niro vibe, and I thought he would be a good antagonist for the piece. I had subletted my apartment to another friend, Rick. Rick had all kinds of cameras and had an extensive career working in film and television. So I thought that Rick might be a nice fit as our director of photography. But like Marvin, things didn't really work out that well. Some days when we were looking at the dailies, we saw that he didn't really know what he was doing. And this was back at a time when processing fees were expensive, film was expensive. It was an odd thing because he was still subletting my apartment, still attached to the project. While Rick had a lot of experience in the entertainment industry, we didn't realize that it was mostly as a caterer. So we brought in my friend Iman to help us finish principal photography. He really did have experience. We shot the movie in sequences in the order of how the film unfolds. I thought that that would be a good idea. It would help the actors with the emotional arcs of the characters. So the opening of the film, we have 3 characters. One is dressed in drag, preparing for an acting class. The second is returning from an audition for the role of Abraham Lincoln in a TV movie. And the third is our antagonist. He's just robbed a bank. So we had various shots of the west side of Hollywood, lots of traveling shots, and decided to shoot it in a way where we could see that the way the characters were traveling, one in one direction and one in the other, that eventually they were going to run into each other. So by happenstance, the bandit, in a desperate attempt to evade the law, stumbles upon an apartment on 3rd Street. An apartment that we were actually living in at the time. There was always stress on the set. I also made the mistake of not recording sound while we were filming. I kind of got stuck in the old trope of we'll fix it in post. The statement I was making with the movie was, you kind of need to have the drive of the bandit, that survival instinct. But you also need the wonder and the talent of the younger Silverman brother to establish yourself in a career, to continue to learn. But most people get stuck in the path of the older brother, Mark Silverman, who is pursuing the dream on a daily basis, hoping to be a star someday. Kind of trapped in the minutiae, which traditionally doesn't favor the working actor. So that really was what the film was about. 3 different actors at 3 different points in their careers. And there's a sequence in the middle of the film, kind of a wake-up call, where the bandit decides to bestow some wisdom. He emasculates the younger actor, calling him names, asking him what he's been doing with his career. And the younger actor realizes that most of the work he's been doing has been in an acting class. He's been in this safe space, in workshops. You see a lot of that in Los Angeles. Young actors in classes, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. So they're caught in the trap of kind of being professional students. And the bandit kind of sets them straight, tells them to be a star in Hollywood, you need to get out there, you need to be seen. All basic stuff. And then he focuses his attention on the older brother, letting him know that to be a star in Hollywood, you need 2 things. You need likability, and you need a certain amount of danger. he believes that Mark Silverman, the older brother, doesn't really have either. And as the film unfolds, we start to realize that perhaps the bandit is or was himself an actor. And gradually the police home in on our bank robber. And almost as an act of martyrdom, he decides that he's going to face the music. And what he leaves the brothers with before his exit is the idea that to succeed in Hollywood, you have to do something. You have to create something. You have to get up every day and work hard, but also work smart. And in the final sequences of the film, we see the bandit meet his demise. It's revealed that he's an actor. We see his SAG card, the symbol of a professional actor, and we see his fate. And then as the epilogue of the film, we see the boys had managed to hold on to a bag of some of the cash that was stolen. And they've used that money to make a short film, a recreation of what had actually happened to them on that day in Los Angeles. And that's the film that we're actually watching. My relationship with Marvin kind of fell apart. He no longer had the money to finish the processing of the film. To avoid prosecution from his tax evasion, his ex-wives, and the loan sharks, Marvin took whatever money he had left, some of which he borrowed from his close friends, and ended up somewhere in the South Pacific, I think. We brought in another young producer named Joe Zen. He was still in film school, but he got us access to editing equipment. I was editing on a Steenbeck. I managed to make a rough cut. We had the raw stock. We had the negative. But we had no money. You needed money to finish a movie. I eventually moved back to London. But in the interim, I made the mistake of leaving the film with the original director of photography, Rick. And for the past 25 years, on every occasion, he's promised to send it to me here in the UK. Where that film is today, I don't know. It could very well be in the closet in my old apartment that I sublet it to him in Santa Monica. Or it could be lost. We never really found that out.